Thank you for tuning in to the Occult Review. We're here at nighttime. It's a nighttime show, 9 o'clock, February 14th, 2013. And boy, oh boy, do we really have a show lined up for you today. But before I even get into this, I want to introduce my co-host, Dave Mathematics, who's on again with me. What's up, Dave? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and a definite salute to the resistance and everyone tuning in. It's very good to be here.
Awesome, for sure. It's just one of those refreshing times for me. Like, man, it's just this expansion that we're having this year is just full of surprises. It all comes from within, but it also comes with you fully understanding exactly what the information is that the reality is telling us, that the universe is telling us, and being able to decipher that in our lives and begin to apply it. And today is definitely a day for people to get a lot of clarity about what exactly is happening around the world, what this whole 2013 is really about as far as your expansion. But of course, this show is somewhat centered around the Pope, his resignation, the Vatican, and what that could mean for the world on several dynamics. Of course, we have 1 billion Catholics in the world, for anyone who wants to know the number. So it makes you ask yourself, if these people believe that this doctrine is true, then where exactly is it leading them to? So I don't know, Dave, where do you want to begin? Like I said, we got quite a lineup. I kind of talked to you earlier about it, and we have definitely some stuff that we want to cover, but I did kind of want to go to the board at some point, and I think we talked about even going there first. What do you think? You think we should take it to the board and just start breaking this thing down, and then I'm sure much of what we'll talk about later on will make perfect sense?
Definitely. I think we can frame it with the actual photo of Pope Benedict, and you had the symbol of the Knights of Malta interfaced on his face, and I think that symbolism right there is a good place to start in terms of giving people a foundation, a foundational understanding of some of the symbolism and some of the energies behind the Vatican.
For sure, and it's definitely it's going to be key for everyone to understand the geometry more than anything. And the symbolisms, the numbers, the names, and the words that are being used, because then everything will make sense, especially what's going on around you. Actually, just taking apart the situation, some may think that this is a light matter as far as just, going into talking about the Pope's resignation. But when you get into the Jesuit component, and you get into how there basically is a system that has been running the world from at least 3 angles. That's, of course, through the military, through the banking, and through spirituality. And you can see it everywhere if you know what you're looking for, if you're not already indoctrinated by it or already deeply hypnotized by it, I guess is the perfect word. But also I wasn't able to tell you earlier when we got on, we kind of rushed and got on, Dave, but when I'm on the board, I won't have a direct mic to anyone. But what I will do is I'll go ahead and plug in our external our external speaker, and then that'll give me the opportunity to hear you if you do want to chime in. So just so you know, I won't have that whole remote headset thing that I used to have. And also, I'm going to be switching mics here, so I'm going to have to do a sound test. Of course, everyone knows this is grassroots in many ways, but I'm going to have to do a sound test on the portable mic just to make sure that everyone can hear me clearly, or if I need to adjust that. So I am going to switch those mics now. Okay, and as you can see, you'll probably have picked up a little bit of feedback from the new mic. But Dave, how does that new mic sound? That's the portable mic.
Yeah, it still sounds clear. So the transmission is clear. We're good.
Okay, sweet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the board here. And of course, I do have the switcher on, so you'll be seeing that here right now. So, of course, I got the board set up today. Most people like to see me get on this board sometimes because I can really, really break it down and then build it back up, and then it's real simple to people because it's in black and white. So this is definitely what I intend to do now. As I said, let me go ahead and get that external speaker just in case Dave has something to chime in about. I definitely can respond to him. So everyone, just give us just a couple seconds. I'm going to get that speaker plugged in.
And while Sevan does that, just I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we're going to try to cover a bunch of different issues today surrounding everything that is revolving around the Pope's resignation. There's a lot of rumors that are going out there. I'm sure you've heard everything from he's made a deal with with some extraterrestrial species to, to what's going on with the child abuse scandals and conspiracies, and all the way into even lawsuits that were claimed against the Pope and against the Vatican that possibly were going to bankrupt some of their initiatives and some of the things they've got going on around the world. And of course, the Vatican is a state, as we know, under Mussolini, that whole formulation came to be. And we're gonna cover a lot of those. We're gonna try to decipher through that stuff so we can get some clarity onto what's really going on, not just in the exoteric in terms of what's being presented by the media, but behind the scenes, behind the veil. What does this symbolize?
For sure, for sure. Okay, Dave, I actually can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you, so okay. We're ready to go.
All right, great. So it looks like I get a little head chop off going on here, but I don't think you need to see me more than you need to see the message. So everyone understand, it is my hand writing it, but you won't be able to see my face because I want to make sure this entire board is exposed here. All right, so fix my mic up here, excuse me. Let me get right into this. Okay, so I call this the Archonic template, because this week has really been this major expansion for myself with just understanding exactly how to take apart fear. And just remember, if anyone can teach you how to eliminate all your fears, which I don't think too many people have ever claimed to be able to do, that is, if you want to give the term master teacher, that's a master teacher. Uh-oh, let's see, we got a little bit of feedback, so let me see where that may be coming from. Just to
it's definitely feedback coming on my end as well. I'm not sure if that's coming from my side or yours.
Okay, hold on real quick. Let me just let me make a few adjustments. Okay, yeah, you may have to just mute your Skype, Dave.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute it right now.
Okay. Okay. We're going to test this out. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Okay, yeah, I still hear that feedback. So obviously it may not allow me to have this this external speaker in, because of course it would just be an open air speaker, which would send somewhat of an endless feedback everywhere. So just know that we're going to go ahead and switch things up. But Dave, I'm not going to be able to hear you directly. So just so you know that I'm just going to break this thing down on the board. Then we're going to go ahead and get into, what we put together on this for sure.
Okay, understood.
Okay. All right, everyone, let's get into this. Okay, so I started to discover these consistencies with how the reality was put together, all of the information that was being presented, the inconsistencies also within the information. Like, for instance, if you ask someone, well, what planet goes with what chakra, then you'll get all of this this different information. Some people say, well, Saturn's down here. Some people say, well, Mars is here. So what it makes you ask first is, who has the authority to name planets? We'll first start with that. Like, who has the authority to name a planet? Because once a person names a planet, let's say, for instance, the planet is Venus, there is an etymological correspondence to this, and there's also a vibration, or what we call a mantra, to this. And so what you have to ask yourself is, who is giving the authority for a person to give the total definition of what something so that could be so vast is, okay? And so when we look into the sky, it's obviously that there's more than 7 planets, okay? So they're on this system that they say there's 7 planets. Now, it just so happens that we have 7 days out of the week. However, one of those days is not a planet, because we have Monday, and of course Monday is named after the moon. So this will mean that it's 6 planets then, according to this knowledge, which you'll see is really everywhere. Once you start to really analyze the system, you'll see it has several holes in it. Now, also, people have begun to believe that they actually have 7 chakra centers. And this is obviously false. Because, first of all, how could a person tell you exactly how many light bodies you have inside of you? So you have to start seeing that what we're talking about tonight is we're going to be talking about the Archonic template, or what I call corpus inversion. And what this is that, let's say, for instance, you say that there's a sun, And then there's these other planets, okay? And what happens is that obviously there's not just, let's say there's 4 here now. There's obviously not 4 planets in the entire solar system. So if we choose to magnify just this sun, forgetting that there's suns a billion times larger, or magnify this planet Mars, or magnify this planet Saturn, if we choose to do that, then we would still only be choosing to do a very small portion of the rest of the universe. So now you'll start getting into how the limitations here on this planet begin to take place. The first part that I want to explain to people, and I thought this would have a little bit more gumption to it, like it's definitely not erasing properly, so I'm going to have to get something else to erase with here. Probably like some wet paper towel to erase with, because this is not working properly. Just, if someone can get that for me. So what this starts to tell us is this starts to tell us about a knowledge that is known as the atom Cadman. Okay? Now this atom Cadman, when you search into the ancient books of especially the Zionists, the ones who created this particular Cadman. Now this Zionist and Sion is synonymous with a simulation. Okay? Artificial. Most of the time artificial as in psi, which is silicone. So the Cadman is basically this macrocosmic body that's stretched across space. Okay? And the ones who put this template together said, okay, well, the sun is here. And some said, oh no, the sun is here. Okay, so there's always arguments about where the planets actually are, but let's just lay it out. Some say then that, okay, well, Mars is here. Okay, and then so what you have is you have this cosmic body, and many people are familiar with this knowledge. You have this cosmic body laying out over space, and the actual chakra centers that are in that body, or the planetary systems that rotate in that body, are giving that body power. Okay, this would be the formulation of how this body works. So what you have here is you have, again, a template of what they are saying the spiritual, physical, and mental body of the human being is really made of. Okay? So what you have now then is you have them dictating. Excuse me, let me turn that back on. This is there's like an auto off on this that we can't seem to get to undo itself. But what you have here, okay, is you have this interpretation then. When you go into the deeper spiritual studies, you get these interpretations of what Venus stands for, and what Mars stands for, and what Saturn stands for. Okay? So who is interpreting what these celestial bodies supposedly stand for? Because of course the story of Mars is it's a war god. Saturn handles death, supposedly. Venus is about love, but more about lust and vampires. Okay, this is what it starts to get interpreted as. And there's of course a lot of other planets. There's Mercury, associated with knowledge, but also mischievousness. So what I started noticing is that when you let someone interpret to you what each celestial body really means, but you've never visited a celestial body, you never did any of your own work to interface with it, what can happen is if you're taking the advice from these archons, which of course it stems all the way into the Russian Orthodox Church, then what you'll get is you'll get their inverted or dark side interpretation of what these planets do. So now let's put the Cadman here again, and let's ask ourselves that, let's say that there's a centripetal or centrifugal force to the chakras, meaning they can either spin in or spin out. There can either be expansion and growth, or the spiral, the contracting. Okay? So what you'll start to see if you go by their interpretations of what each of these planets are about and how many of them you have and what they do, etc., you'll not only be limiting yourself to getting the Sevan chakra center lie, but you'll also be limiting yourself to their explanation of what these planets are about. Because, for instance, the explanation of what Mars is from the ancient times has totally metamorphosized now to somewhat of a hero, warrior, god. Okay? But in ancient times, Mars was always seen as the hearth, the fire, the heat, also known as Adam. Okay? Now, this is also where there has been, if you want to call it a hijacking, but basically there has been a misinterpretation, but then that misinterpretation leading to a new interpretation of what is going on with the planet Mars. Okay, now, first of all, this word Mada means mason. You have to go deep into a lot of the books to find that. But what you have is that there's a knowledge about Adam that is hidden within these ancient societies, and that knowledge is that Adam, which comes from the word Adam or Damu, means red, also synonymous with blood or earth. Okay? Because there's a knowledge that says that that red planet, Mars, was where man came from. Okay? So this is now knowledge that you'll find passed into earth from individuals who are saying they're representing the Martian colony. Now, here's how you, before you write it all off, here's how you know that there are people who believe that there are Martians here. Notice this word gives us words, let's see here, yeah. Gives us words such as maritime, which is the law, matriarch, which is the system under a queen and a hive, even masculine, which is supposed to be strong. But again, all these begin with ma. So, because what I'm going to show you is that this word ma has nothing to do with what we interpret as our mother. It is the name given to us to designate who is giving us all of our sustenance. But it has to do with Mars because the archons or the papacy is actually running a surrogate mother system, meaning that they are pretending, either in the position of church or in the position of state, that they are your parents. Okay? So you have to understand that that's why you get this symbolism that even leads to horns at times. It leads to V's at times, and these are supposed to have something to do with horns also. And it leads to the number 5. It leads to the pentagram. It leads to, as we say here, phi. Okay? And it leads to a certain kind of cycle. And this is what I wanted to highlight as a major point of this conversation today. About how do you know if you're spinning in the right direction? Like, where is all the knowledge that would tell you if you are on track or if you may have fallen off track? It is hidden within one symbol known as Ouroboros. Okay, the serpent eating its tail, which is basically a circle. Okay? And the reason why this symbol becomes important is because everyone has to understand it's a serpent eating its tail. This is a two-dimensional picture of stagnancy. Because on a third dimension, these designs should be going like this. Okay? Not like this in a circle. And the reason why this becomes so important is because this circle of never going anywhere, or a cycle, is talked about in the ancient books as klipoth. Klipoth means the drawback of a planet. Stasis, meaning going nowhere. It has a lot to do with Isis or ice. I-S-I-S, okay? Ice, okay? Freeze, okay? And the reason is because when the serpent is eating its tail, it's actually going inside of itself. So it's just constantly contracting. It's not expanding. And this is also why, and the cabin is here, when you see the cabin, they chose to put the serpent in the head. That's why you go into Egypt, you still find you find the motif, and they have the serpent on the head of the mummy, or on the head of the pharaoh, right? Because that means that is a state of mind that they put themselves in. What's supposed to crawl low is up high, okay? Because their whole job here is to invert. Okay? Turn things upside down. That's also known as the hangman. Just gotta check that, make sure that's still on. Clean this off because we're going to get deep into this to let you understand clearly that this system of knowledge of fear, which is a low frequency, actually keeps you in this circle. Okay? And if you ever want to go to a higher state of consciousness, you can never get there repeating yourself over and over again and not expanding. You could never get there with every day doing the same thing over and over. That will never take you there. What that is that's klipol, stasis, shells is the other term. Shell we talked about the other day about building a constant protection around yourself. Here's the reason why protection is the wrong idea and is fear-based. On all the high frequencies, let's say this is a thermometer, and this is the high frequency. Okay? Now down here you have envy, you have jealousy, you have hate, you have lies, okay? And up here, right? It's all symbiotic. Okay? We just call it symbiotic. You don't need to get into all these terminologies and these different ways of feeling. Soul means one. Basically a collective. This is actually the symbol. It's a 0 and a 1. Okay? So the soul is solo by itself. But not by itself in the sense that you're out here alone. No, there's an all-pervading soul of all of us. The idea of a spirit is something that came about later, meaning that we have individual spirits now. On the astral plane, it's all one huge life form, one huge soul. And that's why they were saying the sun, what the sun is it's all of our souls. It's the external version of all of our souls compressed together. Because even though we think that we're all separate, every move that one person makes affects everyone else. One person takes a breath, that's one breath less of air that everyone else is going to get. So we're all tied in on several different levels. But here's the thing. You never have to be afraid of expansion, afraid of coming out of the body, afraid of going on that journey that you need to go on to clarify things that may take you into places you've never been. Because there can not be anything on this level, envy, greed, hatred, jealousy, etc., greeting you on this level. Because it can't exist there. It actually burns up trying to get up here. And this is why all of the Masonry, secret societies, and all these different organizations, they go by degrees. Okay? Now, obviously, they're going into these degrees, the lower degrees, right? Colder, like ice, as someone pointed out the other day. Hell is cold. And the reason is because of this knowledge that I'm explaining here. Because what happens on these lower levels of the hate, greed, jealousy, all these kind of feelings, any entity in this state or frequency, when coming here, these beings are afraid. Okay? It's very important for you to understand that. That these beings are afraid of high frequency beings. So if you want to know, are the controllers are afraid, or so-called controllers, are they afraid of us, etc., etc.? When you put yourself on a high frequency, and it being these beings don't even get around you because they can't stand your presence. It's a universal law. So this is why the archons had to invert the entire reality and put everyone basically on a hangman. Okay? So that way, and then put the snake, basically, what's supposed to be down here, in their head. Okay? Because all of this down here, okay, is what they can control. Right? This is the areas that they can control, because all of these different fearful entities, these demons and devils and all this stuff that they keep cooking up, the eidolons, the things that build up in a person's mind just based on their thought, all of those things are under their control. See, they understood a certain level that there was no reason for a human being, if you were already in this body, and to the level of comprehension, to ever be afraid of anything on the lower degrees. Because to them, we are like a ball of light. So that's why, if you ever look deeper into the grimoires and things of that nature, and you actually look into literature where it says, where the entire thing takes place, like some of Eliphaz Levi's works, and he explains, even as the Bible explains, that when spirits are bought from these planes, they are not happy. They're going through degrees. It's painful for them. So that's, of course, the part that they don't want to talk about with the secret societies, is that the only thing they're teaching is how to put this inverted pyramid, which is more like this. You know, they want to put this inverted pyramid on top of their initiate, who's on his 1 degree. It's so cold in there, they won't even tell him the truth. All right, let's get into more of this. And I'm almost done, and then we're going to get into some of the stuff that's going on with the hot topics, especially some things that me and Dave covered. Hopefully, sound's still transmitting properly. I am going to go ahead and, well, there is a high-def recording of the conversation today, even an audio. Make sure I caught a backup of the audio copy today to make sure we didn't have any meltdowns. So let me just make sure I go over this with you, because I'm done here on the board today. But if you have that, you can screen capture it from your computer, especially when you get the recording, and you can learn a lot from this. So remember, the authority to name a planet belongs to no one. You cannot look up at the sky, see something in the sky, and all of a sudden say, oh, that's Neptune. Okay? Because then once you do that, you've given it that tune, that vibration, that mantra. So then when you go and teach it to someone else, if that person doesn't understand what Neptune actually means, and they're actually going to be in error, it's called a double bind twice. Because now they're not going to know what it means, and then they're going to be even foolish enough to believe that that's the actual name of that planet. You see what I mean? So we have to stop letting these people dictate to us what the names of things are, especially because they control the language. Okay? Our level of communication is way beyond language. Language is too slow. Language is too cumbersome. It moves around like blocks in the mind. It doesn't really flow properly. It's not a smooth thing to be cycling through your system, but we're dealing with it. The other thing is about division symbols. Okay? These are all, anytime you see a cross, which is their symbols, they love the cross. Okay? Anytime you see a cross, it means division. Okay? We also talked about how division, the division symbol, okay, is one sphere or one organic being, soul, spirit, etc., and then another one here, and then a wall in between. So you basically, division is you don't understand that you actually are really a spirit being, and you have a spirit correspondence. And sometimes you see it in the dream. The other thing is with the cross is that there's all types of crosses, okay? And many of these symbols are universal in a sense where you see them all over the place. You see these symbols and you have to understand, okay, it's all the brotherhood, because their idea is to cross people out. Cross over, meaning using even a sword. Of course, this is the cross. When it's upside down, it's really a sword, okay? And this kind of crossing is splitting or allowing a person to die. Now, some people think they're dying. Now, that's why religions bring out so much war. Religion is all about death. It's not about life. They're not worshiping a live God. They're worshiping a dead God. The God is not here. It's in heaven. You have to understand what they're saying. The God's name is Dios or Deus. And somebody asked me about this, so I want to clarify this, about why the name of God was synonymous with being two or divided. Okay, so you get the Deus, which means two. You get Dios, and then you get Deus again here. These are the same words. Then you get Zeus, which actually is the cognate of the rest of these words. Because when it starts to kick over into other languages, this word is synonymous with D in this language. You see what I mean? So what happens is even when you get to the future, to us, the OS is the operating system, or those who say they're operating, how they operate. Triangles. They're trilateral. They love the Trinity. Okay? Why? Because this is a 3. This is the third dimension. Okay? There is a middle component here. There's night and there's day, and then there's in between. There's man, then woman, then the child. So everything in this dimension is done in triplicity, as you see the rite, the Jabalon rite, which is 3 syllables, 3-syllable mantras for third dimension. So what happens is that you get, again, now something so complex that our language as English, okay, this is English, okay, this is the language of angels, but angels are angles. Angles are right angles. Right angles are L's. L's are gods. So you are, in a sense, and of course this is the English language, so this is gods or Goths. Goth is a Good, and a Good is a Druze. And a Druze is a Yazidi. So you see, if you understand this entire thing, you'll see it ran for a long time. They made the world submit. That's why it says in the annuals of their Christ, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. That's what they call temporal power. It means that's why the Pope, as Phelps points out, that's why the Pope kisses the ground when he gets off the plane, because he kisses it like, mine. That's what he's actually doing when he kisses the ground. Some people asked me about that before, and what the symbolism was behind it. It's not that he's glad to be on the ground again, thank God. He's acting as God. Now, this is what they were actually talking about to be aware of in all the books, not just the Bible, but that when one would come forth to everyone and say, I am God. I'm almost done here. Yeah, looks like it's still on. Now, again, notice in the Gnostic text you get the character Yaldabaoth, chief archon. I have to dry this off. Let me see. Hold on for a second. Okay. It's important you understand this because, or understand it, because it's something that if you fully encapsulate, you're going to escape fear, go off into the higher planes. You'll still be here on Earth. You'll be dealing on higher frequencies, being able to be a bridge for people who are needing to understand that fully. So, actually, you know what? Let me just leave it at that. Also, to understand the Martian component, because I did mention that. People are like, okay, well, where's the Martian? Okay. Remember, in Rome, their story is that Romulus and Remus were suckled by a wolf. Okay? Now, a wolf is a domesticated dog. Excuse me. A dog is a domesticated wolf. Okay? Now, this word in ancient language is known as Can. Sometimes short Ka, meaning a dog spirit. This was the cult of Sirius. Okay? Now, that's why you start seeing, well, wait a minute, is it Mars or is Venus in it? And then Saturn? Because remember, these are all just words that they're using. And they're trying to now make you think these are also celestial bodies, but what these are eidolons, they're archons. They're actually ideas of a knowledge that has been brought forth that people have been worshiping, as we talked about. Worship. Excuse me. Worship. Okay, it's important for you to see that, because the whole thing is driving itself on phi. The ones who play like they're good, they don't like sex, and then the ones that are bad, that's what they're supposed to be doing, a lot of sex, or six. Okay, 6. But then if you're in phi, then you're supposed to be the good one, because you're all pinned in, meaning that you don't go and do anything, and you're afraid. Okay, so notice the game that they're playing. So what you have is, in the Vatican, you get the dog priests, and that's why they call themselves the dog of Venus. All right, that's the black dog that you see accompanied in the Madonna videos when she's doing the Venus initiation. Okay, now remember that this whole can is the act of cannibalism. This is what I keep telling people about eating meat. This is the karma. Okay? Even though car in Spanish means meat, as in carne. C-A-R-N-E. Okay? Because what it is with the dog is that you see a dog is a carnivore. Like now they do have some dogs eating at Whole Foods, the veggie food. I've seen it. Real passive dog. But reality is that the car comes from the carne, comes from the meat, comes from the consumption of meat. It's the land of Canaan. So it doesn't just mean that these individuals were cannibals, although there's a great deal of evidence to show that that's what was going on. But it also means that if you eat any flesh because you are flesh, then you are basically eating yourself. Serpent eating his tail. Karma. Klipo. I checked back to make sure this thing is still on. So now what you have is these priests coming from Canaan. Now remember, this whole thing has been passing for a long time. That this knowledge and this brotherhood has been absorbing all of the spiritual structures in the world, and even been erecting most of those spiritual structures. And that's why they call it the order. Okay? They want to put everything in this Cadman order. 7 chakras at the most. Nothing more. 1 planet, 1 moon. You see, they want to limit everything. Give rules to everything. Okay? The company. Okay? And the reason they're the company is because they own all of the oil mines. You can go and get some of Eric Phelps' work if you want to understand this entire Vatican breakdown. It's really unfortunate. I was going to email Mr. Phelps himself and just ask him how could he still subscribe to the Christ myth if he understood so much about the Jesuits and the Vatican. But that's where it's all going to get hairy at the end, because a lot of people are going to think that the Catholic Church and the Jesuits stole the Christian or Cathar story and then are using it in the world to destroy everyone. They could be no further from being right. Did you not know it's Mar? It's Mary. It's not Jesus. I got the Bloody Mary. Okay? Now Mary, it's a matriarch. Okay? It's a queen. So what happens is that all of the individuals who have subscribed to any kind of messianic, okay? It's going to get messy in here. The crocodile. Okay? You see that on Horus's feet. That's why Jesus takes off to Egypt. Jesus as a character is, I'm still yet to authenticate, is really existing beyond Apollonius of Tyana. But what I have been able to identify is that the rites of Horus and Tammuz and the rest of the sun gods are all the same. It just, Tammuz, Marduk, okay, all these hero stories are all the same, because what they are is that you're supposed to expect one of these individuals to come and save you. Remember, the whole Messiah thing in Israel during the time of where they say Jesus came through there, they were looking for a warrior. They weren't looking for someone to pacify everyone. There was nothing about the Christ that fit their idea, and it was their books of what the Messiah was to be. They were modeling their Messiah role off of John Maccabee. Okay? That's why there's a book of Maccabees. Check that. Okay? Maccabean Wars. So, of course, these individuals who are supposedly from the same descendancy as Jesus would never accept Jesus as their Messiah because it didn't fit the motif of what they were looking for. They were looking to be liberated from Rome. They were looking for someone to come and get all this taxes and all this thing off of them. The same thing that America is doing now. And now from there, we're going to go ahead and get into the rest of the message today because we're going to be talking about America. We're talking about Barack Obama. We're going to be talking about a lot of the stuff that's going on where they're setting the stage to actually keep people here longer. Just realize the gist of this, especially if you have to tune out right now and you got to go to bed or you got to go do whatever you need to do. Low frequency. The only thing they want to do is they want to create a 2012. Oh, it's all fall apart. Then they 9/11. Oh, it's all going to fall apart. They want to sew up these numbers for being something associated with darkness, destruction, death. Okay. Now it's the gentleman that's running around California that we'll talk about later on tonight. It's also the guns now. Guns scare the crap out of people. Guns are, of course, just L, right? That's a gun. That's a L. Okay, he's the God. Inside the bullet, there's lead. Lead is the metal of Saturn. So you see, it's replete. They know what they're doing. They have the entire reality actually constructed off fear. The moment that fear dissolves, the illusion will dissolve. Reality will dissolve and actuality will be there. Now, I wanted to say this before we get into the message. The second half of this message today is for everyone to understand this. Because here's where they have everyone in fear. They have everyone thinking that if all of these individuals that are running the governments and the United Nations and all these different people, right, but not a lot according to the population, they have everyone believing that if, and then this is times infinity of how many people are downtrodden and down here because of their teachings, okay? So they will have you believe that if for some reason they leave or some reason they get overthrown, then the entire world is going to go into collapse. Nothing could be further from the truth. Once again, here's why. It is these individuals that have people working every single day for immense amount of resources that go way beyond dollar amount. Gold caches is just not even the beginning. We're talking about food caches. We're talking about seed caches. We're talking about air. We're talking about all the different resources from the sea and all this that this planet provides, because the planet is still the real mother. Okay? Just remember, the planet, as far as words are concerned, don't speak words. Planets speak actions. Okay? So what happens here is that you watch this planet bear abundant fruit. Earth is abundant. It is not desolate. The only places that get desolate is the ones that pick up these systems. Like you see the Middle East countries are desolating themselves all the time. Let me turn that back on. We're almost done here. This is to also neutralize the fear about, well, how are we going to make the transition? How are we going to survive? Well, first of all, we're going to have to enter into the higher frequency anyway, as far as state of mind is concerned, because that's where we're going to be able to access all the information that's going to allow us to go forward with the planet. Meaning that you're not ready to go back and jump in the woods and start farming and tilling the ground and everything again. Right? That's actually how America was constructed, off of people who are running away from that. So the reality is that we're actually going to something beyond that. We're not going back to that. See, that's where a lot of the New Age people are stuck, is they think that we're going back to tilling the ground. No, we're actually going to expand into frequencies where what you call ground and dirt don't appear as such. Remember, everything that you see in this dimension is slowed down light. So the only thing you can visualize when you get up here in the higher states of consciousness is all of the impurities of slowed down light melting off, and you're actually in a higher vibratory frequency where everything constructed in that frequency is made of higher vibratory frequency. That's the only way you can see it. So you can imagine how beautiful it is. So don't think that just in case these people resign as they're resigning now. Now remember, they got 1 billion people scared right now because everyone wants to know, well, who's going to be the next pope? And we're going to talk about that when I get in the room. But Still, there's 1 billion people that are fearing, like, oh my goodness, where's my God? Because they worship Pope as God. You see the errors in this? Now, notice how, as I always say, it's the mission, not the man. If you put all your trust into this man, the Pope, and then he decides to resign, which we'll talk about why in a minute, then you're left feeling like you don't have a God. Wow, that's why man was never designed to put himself in front of another man and say, I'm your God and I'm your... You see the errors in these systems? So just understand that. These guys go, then all of the resources that have been used in this planet can now start to be used properly. All of the technology in which the geniuses have developed for free energy can be implemented. The planet will raise vibratory frequency, and all of the dense particles of matter, slowed down vibratory light, will melt away, and behold, the rift that separates you from limitlessness will disappear. That's what's going to happen. Like, I have a lot more proof. So I'm going to go ahead and switch out my mics here. I'm going to take a little break. Let me see here. Let me see if Dave is...
Yeah, I'm right here. As you switch mics, we'll just bring it back to everyone. Shouts to K Channel 9. I've been peeping the chat box, and he mentioned, which car are they tuning, or are they tuning your car? This was based on some of, the work breaking down cartoons and just sort of the message behind that. But, when you talk about the archonic template, basically what we're talking about is something that's getting us to vibrate at a certain degree, at a certain frequency. When Sevan talks about they tell you that there are 7 chakras. There's likely because those are the chakras maybe they want you to activate, because when you're activating those chakras and not aware and cognizant of other chakras, then that means you're vibrating at a particular frequency. Even language, whether you're talking about English, Latin, or Gaelic, they act like a Scythian tool that can basically, when you speak the words, tones and vibrations come out at a certain angle that it has an effect on the reality. So all this stuff is knowledge that they have and that they're implementing. And, now we're going to try to, bring that back. If I think when you've changed mics.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Excellent point. That's exactly what we're really dealing with here, is actually bringing this entire thing into another scope by just seeing that, okay, here's another thing that I was thinking about. It's a little bit off topic, but directly on topic. Why is it that everything that we need to see on a deeper or more expansive level on this reality, we have to use some kind of lens or piece of glass or crystal most of the time? And it's a point and it's a fact. If you want to see a little bit further, you may go grab... Let me switch out the switcher real quick. You may grab some binoculars. If you want to go see in space, you're going to have to grab a telescope. If you want to see underneath see microorganisms that you can't see with your naked eye, you're going to grab a microscope. But all of these tools actually contain some type of lens. And then the interesting part is, for some say, well, yeah, that's all the inorganic stuff. No, it's also the organic stuff, because inside of the brain there is a crystal, which is the pineal gland. Generally, taking substance such as DMT, which is in a crystalline format, does actually manipulate you on a cellular level and bend light. So it starts to really tell us that the reason why this reality is as such is because we believe it is as such. Now that transcends on multiple levels, even to something simple like, okay, if we all think that this is never going to change, then it's never going to change. But even more deeper than that, it's like when we're in this actual reality and we're reacting to everything that is being put out to us, we're reactionary. And so thus how the reality should be created is being dictated to us and being defined for us. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely, and we can even talk about some of the ways they do that. Obviously, through the symbols that they always want to use in a certain film and music videos. I think one way we've talked about that previously is, even if you watch the Grammy Awards this past weekend, of course they had Taylor Swift. She came out with the black and white checkered floor symbolism representing duality, the triplicity you were speaking about earlier. These are recurrent themes, but once we get beyond the, oh my God, there's that symbol again, or there's the same symbolism we see again. Once we start to get beyond that and start to break it down, we can realize that we can sort of break out of that archonic spell.
Right.
You know.
Right, which is in itself just wholly constructed of fear. Like and that's why I did write a post that is accompanied to this for those who may want to read some literature related to what we're talking about. But I brought up in that post that the average conversation is still, I mean, just from leaving the office at lunchtime is totally fear-based, but the person doesn't even see it because it's now weeded itself into every single level. Like if the person's saying, well, oh, I got to hurry up and leave so I won't be late. And of course, there's a fear of being late and the repercussions of that. The person may be going in a group and say to the group, well, whose car are we going to take? Because the person is afraid that their car may break down or that, you know, that they don't want to pay gas. And so there's just, it's on everything. And it's only when you start sitting down, and I'm not even mentioning the major stuff, like when a person is actually having to think about someone else at home or, you know, something that they're going to have to pay or deal with, you know, tax time, all these different things coming up. And so you see that the entire reality cannot even function. This current reality that they have set up cannot function without fear. And so that's a fact. And it's because they set it up as a caste system or a tier system or a pyramid or a hierarchy, which doesn't function well when everyone feels like they have the equal amount of energy. You see what I mean? And that's one of the major things about our expansion is because these are just facts. Like realistically, when you're talking about, you can go and get a child that's full of love that may be something like autistic or a Sevan or something like that will push out way more frequency than an archon. You see what I mean? So it's a fact about how our frequency is set up. But what's actually happening to us is that few people have been able to catch it from every single level. And that's why they use this, which is the same tool that we have to use also to unlock. But they use this triplicity. They have 3 levels that they can deal from. That way, if you happen to escape even 2 of the levels, generally the 3rd level they can actually get you, get you tied in. And as we see with even with they have their own versions. As we talked about the inversion, they have their own version of certain things that that correspond to the chakra center. So it's really more of the location that you're thinking that it's in is to how they control things. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for instance, you believe that inside of your brain is enlightenment. Okay. So this means in this society, enlightenment is when you go to college, then you join some type of fraternity, then you join some type of secret society, and then you should be enlightened. You see what I mean? So their entire or illuminated, as they call it. So their entire definition of what is supposed to be in the mind is specific. Likewise, if you want to go with root chakra with them, then you got to be a rock star. You're definitely going to have sexual stamina. You're definitely going to have to be very rude and very sexual, et cetera, et cetera. So they have an interpretation of what you're supposed to be doing with your generative principles. And they call that Mars. You see what I mean? So it's like it's a far more expansive thing that they're doing with, as I call it, the corpus inversion. But it actually is, you can find this information in the ancient books as you begin to put them together, that these are the rites, these are the oaths in which they use. And that brings us also to another part of the conversation, Dave, where we were going to talk about what's going on with the post-resignation in general, like what actually transpired. And so, of course, our message was designed around that today, so we do want to talk about it a little bit. But just for the record, everyone should know that the Pope is actually resigning because he has been summoned. And that there is a group coming out of what appears to be Italy that is basically summoning all of these popes on a church level. That, they're in violation of certain church rights. And this is going to be, let's go and sue ourselves. And so then we'll mish out the punishment to ourselves. And then you'll go to what we just call promised land, which is nobody hears from you again. They think you're either locked up or you're even assassinated. Who knows? But, you're basically away from the spotlight, which is what you want. So what happens is with these organizations is you see that the whole cabinet in the Vatican is very old. Like many of these guys, like if you see on the, and I can get that kind of going here. I forgot we had something going on the switcher today. But you can see many of these guys are really old. Let me go ahead and turn the sound off as I get this thing queued up. But there has to be a new school come in, basically. There needs to be a new regime coming in. And so that's what we have to also see with this whole switch, is that it's not necessarily a switch saying that they bow out. It could easily be that for you, meaning that understanding this information that we're presenting tonight could totally detach you from their matrix. But what's going to happen is that also they're going to switch according to this time that we're going in, which is, the March. They're going to make up all the switches now because this is the 2013. This is the major pinnacle of the energy per se. This is when everyone is coming either to a level of waking up. They got to make their decision. Are they going to self-substantiate and expand to the next level of their consciousness? Or are they going to depend on something else that's going to come back that's never really going to come, et cetera, low vibrational, low frequency, lazy, depression type thinking. And so this is the big thing that we have in front of us. And let me go ahead and switch this real quick if you want to chime in on that, Dave, because we can definitely even take our thing from the top as far as the information that we had to present. I know I kind of went right into the middle of that, but I want to make sure we do cover all of that.
Definitely, and I mean, if anyone got a chance to actually see the footage of the Pope, resigning and explaining, why he was resigning, of course he cited his age and said he's physically and mentally not able to fulfill his duties as Pope. But, you can kind of just sense something might be wrong with his energy vibe if you look deeper into it. And I believe we do have that footage. But, on a sensical level, even, getting beyond sifting through the media and trying to find out the truth of the matter, which Sevan just dropped as to really why he resigned, ask yourself how anyone who is presuming to be the intermediary between you and the Most High can't even keep, the Catholic priests in check in terms of this widespread child abuse scandal. That right there should be an alarm going off that there is something wrong with the way they've spiritually been perverted and the way in which the organizational structure is corrupt and not even concerned with those matters. And in fact, probably, I'll take it a step further and say that, they were probably more involved in those matters than most people would like to even contemplate. Right.
I mean, which is a whole part of the cult, because really the cults and the rites come from the same cults and rites from the Bacchus and the pagan rites that existed with what rolled into the Sangreal, which is of course not just some cup that Jesus had at the Last Supper, but actually a rite of menstrual blood, semen, and things that get into a deeper level of what people don't understand about this old culture. And also, I did show some footage of just now of the Pope, and unfortunately, I didn't have the one with the subtitles up, so I'll get that going on in a minute. But notice the robe is Santa Claus's robe. It just dropped the comedy on top of it. But the thing is that you see there's a connection with the Santa Claus situation. And you also see actually at the end of one of these recordings, which we have, there is even an evocation, which goes on in the Catholic Church all the time. There's a constant. You look at the drudgery. Everyone that you see that's involved, when you look at their face, they have that appearance of someone who is very tired, someone who's downtrodden, not someone who is activated and awake and ready to expand everyone. And that becomes a major part of the situation that we're dealing with now. When you have people leading us, they're in all red. Now remember, because of the Catholic order, the Jesuit order, the Brotherhood, it expands out into the Masons and Mada and all the rest of the Ordinati, Intrepidi, Diaboli, and many of the different organizations. But what you'll find is that there is no expansive thought. There's only a contractive thought. Oh no, we need to get things under more control. And so that's why you get this whole, you get this depravity, which actually then equals, even from a chemical level, the individual doing something that shows that they're extremely off balance. Also, again, depriving, like there's many of these men who have been in the seminary, and then they're not working with their sexual organs at all, have made their sexual organs dormant, somewhat of an eunuch. But that is not how it works. That energy is just channeled somewhere else, sometimes into the mind, and actually drives and stirs the mind crazy. The energy must cycle in itself. So yeah, you get a lot of the imbalance, which is the other thing about, just not seeing that there's not 7 chakras, there's not 9 chakras. There's a limitless amount, because anytime you're talking about chakras, it becomes something that is so expansive. If you say that you've defined it and you're actually able to compress it into one thing, once again, that's contraction. No one person can define something else that another person needs to experience to fully understand. So, it's a big thing. Just like as you were saying, when a person steps out and says, I'm the representative of God on earth, and I'm the one that is going to be able to assist you in your spiritual expansion here, and you just need to come to me and I'll take care of everything. And then, of course, here's the rest of our oaths, rights, treaties, pacts, etc. Then it's a big claim. So now we have to ask ourselves, not to just step on the thing completely and not look inside, but has the Catholic Church been able to give its members expansion, not a promise of expansion on an astral plane or heaven or another world that doesn't exist here, but actual expansion in their lives to what they're experiencing now. And this is what I started to notice also about a great deal of religions is that the limitation comes in with you not being able to actually not just express yourself in the reality, but actually see who you are. See, some people think that, is this another a plight of a sinner that wants to just do whatever they want? Everything has its cause and effect and repercussions. You don't need anyone to tell you what's right and wrong. You'll see it by what occurs next after you make the action. But what we're really talking about here is we're talking about, does this get a person to a level where they actually are able to display the energies that we know are associated with a person that is truly in touch with the higher level of themselves? And the answer is no, because it's still fear-based. There's a fear of God or a fear of Allah, and then there's supposed to be this love. You're supposed to fear, but you're supposed to love. Now, these two have never went together very well. Generally, when you see any kind of relationship, let's say, for instance, the woman is in love with a man, but she's also scared of him, there's an extreme level of mental imbalance happening daily. There's extreme level of abuse happening daily. So in the relationship with God, per se, quote unquote, as this being, the ultimate being, if you can't even get a response, if the God is hidden or atum or amun, if the God is hidden and not in front of you, then how would you expect to ever develop some kind of spiritual relationship? And so this is the major key to also us seeing that we get it the way we want it. If you say your God is not here and he's dead and he rose and later on he'll come back for you, then that's where it'll actually be. So there is a great level of this reality that we're controlling, but it's actually controlled through suggestion. Definitely controlled through suggestion.
Yeah, definitely. And the suggestion you're talking about may be an actual thought that you think is actually an organic thought that you formulated and developed, but you may not know that there's something suggesting you to think that thought,
right?
And to get that frequency. And Sevan, one thing I did want you to comment on was, we talked about when we watched the Pope's official explanation. He mentioned that he sought maternal guidance, and I know we wanted to sort of get a little bit deeper into what he was referring to in terms of the matriarchy and
sure.
its relation to the Vatican.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely something. I think we even covered a chunk of that kind of on the board, but, just to kind of close it down, just because he did use those specific words, maternal guidance, and just the idea of what a matriarch is. And of course, the Queen is definitely aligned with the Pope. They do wear the same Maltese cloth. Malta starts with Ma. Ma actually means serpent king, just so you understand where the terminology comes from. And it just, again, doesn't mean that every single snake is evil. Like, if we're not getting on serpent worship here and trying to bash other forms of creation, etc. But what we're saying is that you have to see the origins, because even the Zulu tribe has documentation from their ancient records showing that they are from Mars. So it appears that what we're doing here, and some people just need to ask themselves the question. I'm not going to suggest any thoughts for them, but is it possible what we're doing here, we were also doing somewhere else? That this whole backwards process it's not our first time, and that there is a record of something like this going on where we've been entwined with these archons through lives of worship and praise with them basically on their warships using their templates, and then letting them promise to us that they're going to be able to deliver us. And all this sounds like cargo, basically, deliver us into the hands of what? And so what happens is that, and then when you look at it under the microscope, what's going on is going on, meaning that there's an energy transfer that is vampiric, meaning that a person can pray for a prolonged period of time and not receive an answer, but still feel confident because someone who may even be lying says they received an answer. So what you have is basically in itself the babble. And this is why the word Babel is synonymous with the word Bible. Even if you look at it, they're the same words. These are homonyms. So what happens is that it's because it's designed to cause confusion. Confusion is combustion. Combustion creates fear. Fear is fire in the sense that it will burn you. Burning is pain. And then you get, again, the P's. And this is where I do want to make sure we get into the P's and the principle. Because the Chi-Rho symbol of the Pope is a P, which is a phallic symbol. That's why the other member starts with P. So what happens is that people get really more of screwed by their relationships with these entities. And they're very blunt at making it understood, but on a mysterious level. And that's the whole game. It's like the coward in the sense where, as I talked about, America and Britain, only using drones now because they don't want to try to fess up to the American people anymore because they got to send troops over there to do something they know that most American people know that is not something that they morally or ethically can do based on their religion. And then that's the thing. So now they're tied up. So I also want to talk about that. I want to talk about the next expansion of just how the American mind is being warped by being encouraged to play this race war, this back and forth game, this I prefer this guy over this guy. Meanwhile, the stage is being set for another Germany style situation that can easily be prevented, just like it could have been prevented then, if the ones that are even just on this line start to wake up into the expansive limitless. Because what we're actually talking about is in the limitless is the solutions for stopping these kind of things, but only there. And that's one thing people need to see about this conversation, is that this is not a conversation where we're going to present answers that we haven't fully analyzed as being able to work or not. There's always a universal answer for you directly, which is getting cleansed and getting yourself on that stage of having no fear. But as far as what the world needs, like what can be applied to the entire world, that is indeed a work in progress. It's something that we'll actually be going through this information and figuring out exactly how to apply it to neutralize people's fear, to get them away from feeling like they need this God to protect them. Basically, God only stays in this position where when something gets too big for them to handle, they call this God, quote unquote. But meanwhile, all the energy and all the determination that is needed to actually carry out the entire process comes from that individual. And we also can see, if you have that eye on the third eye plane, that when you ask some spirit, especially that you're not identified with and that you have no clue of what's going on with it, you don't even believe in spirits, to do something for you, then the check and balance system that may come into play because you feel like it gave you something is going to be that you will be now more attached to it. Notice this, like people think that the check and balance system is written somewhere and is going to be paid off later. No, it's paid off immediately when you think that you've evoked something and it's actually changed something for you. And then you place more faith into that. It's like now you've opened up even more energy to become removed from you. So it's very important for us to see it's not mystical what is taking place here. It's really right in front of our face. We're just overlooking it because we at times look at some of the words and we don't understand completely what they mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brief break. I'm going to also let Dave refresh himself very briefly. And then when we return, we're going to get into the Chris Dorner situation. We're going to talk about basically the stage that they want to set. We're going to talk about how to avoid that stage. And we're also going to get more into exactly what a person can do to get themselves expanded now. Because remember, what was just really released on the board is to show you how that the high frequency awaits. The only thing that you've been having to take part of is a reality that is convincing you to stay in this low frequency. So that way you become more susceptible to their ideas. Now notice how this works, because you did mention that also earlier, Dave, and I want to really break that down for people. When you're in a low frequency, let's say it's because it's some food that you're eating, or it's some news you've been bombarded with, or whatever the case may be, and you're in this low frequency, now what happens around you is there becomes suggestions. Now notice when you're in a low frequency, you don't feel well when something says, hey man, let's just forget about it. It's easy for you to say, yeah, just forget about it. I hate this. right? So when there's a negative suggestion, it's easy to go with that negative suggestion. You should just leave. Yeah, let me leave now. You see, so in the high frequency, if something said you should just leave, the high frequency is going to say, no, we need to settle this before we go. You see what I mean? So there's a different way of approach. There's a totally different way of that you approach the same situation based on whether you're in a high or low frequency. And so also you'll see that people who carry a very low frequency, when seeing other people do low frequency things, let's say you have a gambling, we'll just say a gambling frequency on you, okay? And then it's a lower frequency because it's actually taking chances and utilizing your goods in the improper way, etc. And then when you see another a gambler or someone gambling, then you may want to go and gamble. It's like immediately you feel the connection. It's almost like a cigarette smoker that sees another cigarette smoker and then they feel like they need to smoke a cigarette. And it's a resonant frequency thing. And so we can also use this in our advantage. Remember, this is not a punishment system that I'm not telling people, oh, you need to figure this all out or else you're all doomed. See, that's not the way to go either, because what that does is that actually gives the person fear-based motivation, which doesn't work either. What you actually explain to people is that the immense level of reward, and it just is, that's waiting for you when you actually figure this out, is going to be there. It's not something where either you figure this out or you're doomed and you're going to get hurt and blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm telling you today. What I'm telling you is even the fact that you're actually here listening to this message already shows that you're so far along and actually getting ready to expand that it's already going to happen anyway. So remember, my message on the phone today, especially for the people that are listening, is not to tell them at all that they have something that negative to be afraid of. Quite the contrary. I'm telling you the entire cosmos and every single star is open for you to visit. The collapsing of borders can take place the moment that you release fear. Fear is the wall. That's what the symbol of when you turn around, why there's a wall always right there. It's what they constructed to separate you. That's what we were talking about, the division symbol. And the reason why this becomes important is you feel it's a protection. You feel it stops the person next door from seeing who you are on a too personal level. Now, of course, now that we've developed all these shells, it's okay to be like that. But before, if you come out with some clothes on, I think even in Genesis that happened. Someone comes out with clothes on, everyone's looking at them like, uh-oh, something's occurred. Separation must have occurred. They're wearing clothes. You have to understand what these real metaphors mean, because even the word clothes, C-L-O-T-H-E-S, is the same word as close, C-L-O-S-E, because it actually closes you. So this is a perpetual thing, and that's why I was explaining in the post, again, if everyone wants data on this, you can read that post, that what happens is one idea leads to another. This is why you have to start grabbing this thing by the tail. You have to be quick. You have to watch when your mind starts to spiral into the fear-based propaganda and negativity that's fed to the brain by none other than eidolons, what sometimes in the ancient times people called spirits. You know, what we're now giving all sorts of titles, especially in pharmaca, basically with medicine, they're just saying it's chemical imbalance. But all these things are energies that in fact can be balanced by us, but we definitely need to figure out how that's going to happen and why we need to apply that. And I'm just here to tell everyone it's for the reward. It's not for the punishment. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and take a break really briefly. And then let me go ahead, like I said, and freshen myself up. And then we're going to get to the last part of the message today. And, yeah, let's do that. Let's see here. Okay. I was actually looking through some of these videos. These are some of the videos that we had up last time. And I guess, you know, it's actually relative. Like I was looking at some of these videos in here. I'm going to go ahead and take a break really briefly, but I'm going to go ahead and put one of these slides in. But, you know, the first one up is the baptism. You know, they take the child. Next thing you know, they're baptizing the child. Next thing you know, they're indoctrinating the child. And the child is supposedly have an understanding of exactly who God is based on man. And then when the man fails them, you know, it's an entire disaster.
Right. And you know, while you guys watch this video, if any of you are Catholic or, are familiar with some of the traditions, this is not to try to make people feel bad about their religious traditions. If you were raised a certain way, it's to help you remove that false intermediary who poses as the authority between you and your higher power.
Right.
And the thing is, from baptism to confirmation, to the Eucharist, to when you're around 12, 13, and you go in something in the Catholic tradition that's called confirmation, where you confess your sins, and then it makes you feel bad about it. And then you're scared to do anything. You don't want to go out and sin, so you're scared to experience. And then you're in the Sunday Mass, of course, and you're going through these incantations to where you can almost memorize the Mass and what's going on, and you look around you and everyone's sort of in this daze, and you realize that that's the extraction of energy, that you are acquiescing your power, and a lot of people don't even realize it. So what we're trying to do, we're not trying to make people, upset or feel guilty if they've been in that tradition and maybe they've had some good experiences with the community and, with the fond memories of their family's traditions. That's one thing, and that is fine. But to understand the deeper message behind this is to really take away that person who is standing between you and the Most High, or, as Sevan and we say, the resistance, all itself is the maximum, and is the maximum way to really fully grasp that is to take away these people who are posing as authorities.
For sure. I mean, it's been going on for so long. Like, we're actually in a time now where we can clearly see why we haven't gone anywhere. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say we haven't gone anywhere. We've learned a lot, but now it's time to apply that lesson. That's just kind of easier to say, or else we'll be going in this circle. I think there's a relative footage that's up now, but we'll be going into this circle and it won't be taking us anywhere. We'll just be eating our tails. We'll be repeating ourselves, listening to the same dictation, as we know, their repetition, or the Republican or the reptilian or the Ray, basically their repeat of our entire reality over and over again. I think that's why they use a lot of this geometry that's associated with wheels and cogs, because they would definitely rather have you fixed into some kind of a program, and that way they can manipulate you and change you or re-engineer you as they please. And that's also what we see a big thing going on in the world with. They always re-engineer or archetype after a while. Some archetypes, they run right off the cliff. I think we had some information to cover also about just, the Sandy Hook situation, some of the Batman shootings, as we call it, and just a lot of those things that you see that are interlinked, and just even and you can see it gets even to some other level of sickness, because notice just recently, I believe the child's name is Hadia, but she was, they say she was gunned down a block away from Barack Obama's house in a park, right? And so they're saying that, and they bring this up during the State of the Union address. And it's, to me, just a clear sign to show, like, man, wait a minute. So this is, again, just as coincidental as the Barack Hussein Obama rhyming with Hussein, who's the last dethroner, or synonymous with the Hussein, or the last person we were looking to dethrone, and then having a name that rhymes with Osama. You see, it just doesn't make any sense when you look at it, but if you can make it make sense. It's funny because even the light pole on that footage, it looks like a Saturnalian light pole. Oh my goodness. I don't want to put the conspiracy too much on it, but the light pole on the thing looks like Saturn. But it's a Saturnalian genuflection, so why not? But again, people can't see it as that, and that's why they were talking about that this dimension is veiled. That wall actually doesn't allow you to see your actions and what you're doing and the repercussions that they're causing. And so now we're actually slowing this thing down and looking at it very closely. Now notice this is also an expansive part of our lives too, because just from a level of being fully responsible and conscious of every move that you make, when you start slowing down everything around you to see, hey, is there something else going on that maybe I didn't really catch or completely understand what was going on, then, that's the major step to one actually expanding already into the higher frequencies. Of course, I see the higher frequencies, and I'm not saying higher as one is on top of the other, but higher as far as the level of how much you know, how much you're responsible for is increased. All the lower frequencies correspond to instinct. And that's why even some of the spiritual entities on the lower frequency can just instinctually respond to a symbol. You understand the secrets behind that. So when they can also decrease the over lifetimes, remember, decrease the spirit of humanity and then put them under symbols. So that way that you're on the astral plane, you see a certain symbol and all of a sudden it makes you afraid. So this is far extending, I not just believe, but know. But it also means that at any point, especially in our reality where we can extend into correcting it, this awakes our simultaneous situation. That's where we start getting the assistance. Like people see the information that we've been bringing forth. The resistance has just continued to escalate since the beginning. And it's only because of reaching more and more every single day towards the oversoul, the higher self, the all is self principle. Still knowing that there's a lot to learn. And seeing especially how fear ties into this gives us such a big step in this, because we can reverse engineer it. Meaning that if we can look at everything that's happening in the reality and we can see how things are called, the geometry behind it and why things are the way they are. And it starts giving us all the answers. Like notice how even again with the pentagram, if you understand it, a person can write encyclopedias on it. But if you really understand what it means, you'll see why so many of these countries and empires or whatever always try to put it up as their symbol. Because it's when they actually now subscribe to it also. And this is the danger. It happens all the time. It happens when a person even joins a religion. But on a deeper level, the danger is when a person starts to use it on their own and subscribe to it and know that it's not going to get them anywhere, but still use it anyway. You see what I mean? Like, look what's going on in the reality. A person now in the rap industry especially, they know that they have to go and do a specific initiation in order to be even considered. So they go and do that initiation. They know that, the masonry is heavy in there, so they go and be a mason. You see, so there's this inclination now, and you'll get it still from millions of people, but on a subtle level, but even on a direct level, you see people are like, okay, you know what, if this is what I got to do, then I'm going to go and do it. And that's when we know that something is going on horribly wrong. We have to step in now and actually shift the consciousness that still is not completely shifted yet. Like some people are celebrating because we're in 2013 and they've expanded. But when we're looking at the rest of the world, these people have not expanded. Like they are still under the yoke. They are treating them like animals. Like when I rolled out to the store the other day. And man, 3 huge buses came by, packed with Nicaraguan men, all men. And they were all headed to work the fields, to bring the crops that go to Walmart. You see what I mean? So behind closed doors, behind the veil, they're still abusing humans. And that's why sometimes people, they look into the other components like the, child molestations and things like that. And they only think about that. And then, of course, because it's an uncomfortable thought, they don't think about it too long. But there are other injustices going on that equal a person's entire life being somewhat of a waste. And if you can sit back and watch it, that means they actually got you too. See, that's how deep this really becomes. If you can sit back and watch as a spectator someone else suffer and not do anything in life. And we're not saying you got to go fly to the country and start, delivering out food packages now, but we're just saying anything of how your life is structured to actually assist humanity in breaking this yoke at some point, then it actually means one has been fully programmed into the system. And of course, that's how they have everyone. Excuse me, not everyone, but a lot of people. They have a lot of people only considering themselves. That's what the whole watching news and that thing is about. Like when a person sees something happen, they're like, well, at least it wasn't my cousin or something. So, another news channel. 30 babies burned in Gaza. Wow, those people never stop fighting. Next, go to the next channel. You see what I mean? So that's when the desensitization of being in the country of America has actually fully taken place. It's not something that we're waiting to happen. We're waiting on to happen. It's something that we have to awake from. So I guess, the last part of this is obviously we're moving towards a level of full transparency, meaning that what is actually going on in the world today is being laid bare for exactly what it is. And that's going to create a certain type of atmosphere. Of course, it's going to create an atmosphere where you're going to be able to expand if you are already projected to expand. It's one of those times where you have to really, really look at what you're doing, how you're operating your life, where you're really going, and then even removing yourself from the equation when you start thinking about, can you operate doing certain things? Like, you have to put yourself out of the equation and say, can anyone operate doing this? Meaning, can anyone go to limitlessness with fear? No, it's not possible. It's not something to do with you. It's something that happens for every single being. Whether they retreat to their holes or they go into their palaces. When they are not willing to come together, they're contracting. Now, I may in my lifetime crack the ultimate knowledge of weighing souls. I do believe from what I've seen that the more that a person begins to fear, the more they come into more and more incarnations as less of a spirit. And that this, in fact, will put them into less fleshly vehicles, meaning that next life a dog, next life, porcupine, rodent, because the spirit is continuously contracting. It's still the life force, but it's contracting. It's not growing. It's not expanding. So, that's fringe for you. But what I'm starting to see is that the more you expand, the more the vehicle responds. Meaning that I'm showing proof that when there's spiritual expansion, and there's proof everywhere, but when there's spiritual expansion, there's a physical correspondence to it. There's something physical that happens to your physical body. So this is the proof that you can begin to affect things on the physical level based on your spirituality. And so, like I said, I had to get into it even more because, again, you have to begin to reverse engineer it. You have to say, what is the opposite of that then? If you're being encouraged all of your life to be in fear and to be negative and to go down the wrong path, which is what's happening, and people are just going down that path, then when you die, is it all like roses? Is it supposed to be? Like, we think of the universe as being orderly and in balance and everyone gets what they put in. So do you really want it giving you something amazing, even though through suggestion, you've done all the things that don't equal your expansion? If the universe honestly really cares, it's going to want you to repeat the lesson over again so that you actually get it. So we see this repeating. This is not, like I said, these conversations that I'm having are not to first timers. These are for people who have lived lifetimes, and you can see the remnant still inside of you, the reflection at times when someone talks about something that you were once passionate about. Whether it's the Old Testament or whether it's, Naga or whatever it may be, you cling to it and you're like, well, that was, and then that's, of course, your understanding of it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to get to a point where we start opening this thing up. It's just like looking into something that is so expansive that it makes your soul grow. And that's why the soul is synonymous with the fish. When you put the fish into a small fish tank, it doesn't get bigger. But when you throw it in the ocean, there's just no telling. And that's what we're really dealing with this in reality now. We're having to give people the information that is necessary for them to totally self-substantiate. Self-substantiate means that you no longer see anything else as your crutch or your God or something that you need. You go inside, and then inside you find everything. And the last thing I also say is that it's going to be also a task to give something to someone that they already have. Meaning that what I'm talking about as far as activation and energy is inside of you, so you have it already. So don't confuse the message as this being something that you don't already possess. This is just something that you have to remember. And that's one of the biggest keys to this thing, is to see your expansion as even in itself being on a certain time clock that now is saying ding, 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 it's time. So What's up, Dave? I mean, you got any more that you want to deliver into the message, brother? I mean, you had definitely some beautiful points. You know, I definitely looked over our notes. We did kind of dance over the Dorner situation, but I don't know if you wanted to say a couple things about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, man. You broke it down eloquently and demonstrably. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone got a definitive message today. But about the Dorner situation, it definitely is related to fear, just in terms of the way the media is portraying the situation. I mean, before it was like a weak manhunt for him, and by the end of it, you were probably thinking he was going to jump out of a Lambo with machine guns strapped to both arms and just taking out the entire universe. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but also
in
just,
LA.
even with the Hurricane Sandy hook, as we like to call it. I mean, the way that they have people sort of hooked into this, kind of let you know that they want you to perceive it a certain way.
Yeah.
And as we start to unveil a lot of things, and as transparency really starts to rear its head, we're going to more easily ascertain the truth from what the media is portraying as the archonic illusion. And even now, people, whether it's a lot of people are looking at the Dorner situation and really looking into it and not believing what the media is telling them. So and we have to get to a point where we're not doing that because now it's something that touches our heart. We feel a certain way. We also have to use our minds and our spirits to not be so emotionally involved in something that we just allow them to pluck at our heartstrings and allow us to get so emotionally charged up into something and so caught in the allure of the conspiracy that we're just now being entertained. And I know you talk about that a lot, but it's really important to get to a point where we can be a little bit more mature about this, because it's
right.
Now every week they're throwing something at us.
Right.
So we have to really be prepared and be centered.
Right, and extremely important. And I will mention in closing this conversation that we of course have the virtual cleanse starting on March 11th, and that's of course we're going to be making an effort to really get resistance members cleansed and into that frequency that actually accompanies when you remove the toxins from your body. So it's a big thing. And then even if you can't do it now, of course all the archives will be up. We even have the site virtualcleanse.com. But we'll actually be lining up all the videos for the cleanse. We'll have all the suggestions if you can't utilize the products that we have on the site, and you need to get something from the store right away, etc. We'll have all the suggestions for that. So that's really something that I want people to know, that a great part of this hinges on the action, like what you actually do, not what you think. You have to get out of the brain gym, meaning get out of your mind. Your mind is a skull or a cave. It's a tube inside of something that makes it feel compressed. So what that tells us is that now we have this opportunity to really get more spiritually identified, to move away from what we clearly see is going to decay, the ideas of the whole nature of what they determine nature is. Actually, I want to say that clearly. Because notice that for a while, Masonry, I'll say this in the end, was seen as nature worship. But again, when you look at the real knowledge of nature, and you look at the plants, and you look at all the different things that that are offered in nature to heal you, and then you ask yourself, is that knowledge just passing around to men and women freely? No. What you have is you have the medical industries. You have all of this. So basically, in the nutshell of this conversation, we should be really keen on understanding these individuals, such as these factions, as the Jesuits, the Catholics, the ones who run the religions. Again, as Dave Mathematics says, we're not talking to the people who are inside of the temple or inside of the fold. We're talking about the individuals that are conducting it and know very clearly of what they're doing. We're also in a position where we've been involved to a certain degree, meaning that I'm sure there's people on the line that are Catholics. I'm sure people know that I have been a Christian before in the past. And so what you really see is that it's all a ladder. It's something that you're actually climbing up. And the only thing you're responsible for doing is not getting stuck. And that's, of course, getting stuck is the klipa. That's the holding up of your energy. So I want to say wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone, and definitely encourage them to apply this to free themselves up. Understand there's no fear on the higher frequency, because it can't even get in there. I don't even want people to think it's not welcome there. It doesn't even go that far. It's strictly a frequency thing. So when you move into those higher frequencies, the more harmonic frequencies, you already know what to look for, and that's definitely your emancipation. So that's pretty much it, Dave. Like I said, I don't know if you want to take us out of here.
Always an honor to share, time and space with you, brother, and everyone else on the line. Definitely can feel the energy tonight, and just a massive salute to everyone.
Likewise. Okay. So we'll definitely be getting with everyone soon. Like, of course, there's always something going on around here. Just keep your keep your frequencies tuned, because we always have something going on with the world. But we definitely want to keep allowing this information to expand. As notice, we took the Pope situation, completely destroyed fear. So it's not like we want to jump on this mic and we want to just report about these people in Hollywood and report about these people doing rituals and scenes. We want to use the opportunity to take the entire thing apart, so that people could say, okay, this is on so many deeper levels, and I have something to learn from this. So that's what's up.